last week, a package came through the door, the most valuable smartphone to ever enter this room, and I wanted to show you what it's like to live with. Let's just say it didn't go to plan. The first thing I did, of course, was unbox it. So inside this heavy-duty cardboard is the retail packaging of the device. It's premium, as you'd have guessed, for close to $2,500. This is Huawei's absolutely jacked China-only SuperPhone, the Huawei Mate 30 RS, and whilst I was excited to just rip it out the packaging, whack it on charge and start using it, because this is a special edition device, it does come with a few extra bits and pieces. There's a limited edition black version of their 40-watt supercharger. We've got a USB-C cable to charge the phone, but what you might not have seen before is a second USB-C cable. The reason for this is that, as well as the standard mains charger, you also get Huawei's new car charger, which also supports super fast 40-watt charging. Now, I realize car chargers aren't the most exciting thing on the market, but this might just be the highest spec offering out there. There's a second port to charge a second phone and an LED ring around it to keep it visible. There's a pair of earphones, nothing crazy. This is like Huawei's answer to Apple's AirPods, and a box which contains the rather unusual Porsche design smartphone case. And below this, a second packet with the SIM ejector tool and a couple of manuals if you needed them. You probably remember the Huawei Mate 30 Pro. Well, the Mate 30 RS starts with this as a base, but beefs it up dramatically. 8GB of RAM becomes 12, and 256GB of storage becomes 512, with room for an external card. It uses better materials and an even faster chipset, but I'll get to this. Not to mention, the phones have had a fair few updates since launch to improve their features. So, what I wanted to do was put my SIM card in and live with the device to see if it felt any different. Okay, 23rd of December, the day before Christmas Eve. I had 3 things I wanted to do, and whilst I do them, we can keep track of battery life with the indicator at the bottom. Buy presents, find the best possible rooftop for an ultra-wide shot, and test the power of the phone with some games. So, on the way to the shops, one of the very first things I noticed is that people can't stop looking at this phone. I was just walking around, filming what was in front of me, and I definitely felt an above-average amount of eyes on this thing. 4K video is still capped at 30 frames per second, but I was happy with the stabilization. All this attention is probably because, like it or not, this is unconventional as far as smartphone design goes. It uses primarily leather on the back with a glass window in the middle. I've used a fair few car-branded smartphones now, and this is probably my favorite from the outside. They've actually made it thicker than the standard Mate 30 Pro, but because the camera module has changed from being one small protrusion to kind of this whole window in the middle, it is a bit more stable when it's on a flat surface. There is also a custom software skin and wallpapers. I like the base colors, but don't really like the clash with the colors of the normal icons and the rest of the UI. It was around 1:30 when I arrived at the shopping center, and I was recording this with a feature called Dual View, which lets you record at 2 different magnifications at the same time. Now, I was taking screenshots throughout the day to keep track of the battery, and notice there's no volume slider here, which means the easiest way of doing this is by double tapping with your knuckle. It is wildly unconventional, but it works. Shopping. I wanted to get one main thing as a present, and in my mind I was picturing some sort of house ornament. So we found a good shop for this and used it as an excuse to test the phone's video capabilities in a medium well-lit environment. I stumbled into the lighting section and instantly decided that this is where I'd find something, so after about 20 minutes, lots of back and forth, I'd made a decision. So we've ended up going with this one. It's a dimmable lamp, so every time you tap the base, it lights up brighter. I like it. And then, like any sensible person who just bought a Christmas gift, I tried throwing it. Like the Huawei Mate 30 Pro, the Mate 30 RS has the option to record 7,680 frames per second slow motion. It's so slow that even fast-moving objects can appear to stop in their tracks. I've actually heard some people say it's too slow, but you can always record at a more normal frame rate if you wanted to. Alright, so we just finished shopping. The sun is setting, it looks beautiful right now, and just before we go to that rooftop to get a massive view across Nottingham, we found a bit of a market, so we're going to head there and see what we find. This is where things went wrong. It actually started great. The place was jammed with people, and I got some great shots using each of the phone's different zoom magnifications. Plus, after giving it half an hour, this became the perfect place to test the phone's video capabilities in low light, and to get one thing clear, no other smartphone does it better. The footage was clean, well exposed, with great looking background blur, which of course in a Christmas market with all these tiny light sources around was a treat to look at. We even got a few portrait mode shots, and I remembered a few of the things I liked about the standard Mate 30 Pro that are also here. An automatic step counter on your lock screen, and auto rotation that rotates not based on the orientation of your phone, but the orientation of your eyes, which is just better. For example, if I rotate my phone but my head stays straight, the content will rotate because I'm looking at it from a different angle. But if I rotated my phone and my head, let's say I was lying down in bed at night, then the content wouldn't rotate because I'd be looking at it straight on. But then, you might not know, I have a younger sister, and I was out here with her. And whilst she was getting some shots of the market, she left her phone on a ledge. You can probably see where this is going. I carried on looking around the market, she followed, and that's the last time we saw it, even though we realized 15 seconds later, the phone had been stolen. So, bit of a spanner in the works, so I spent the next half an hour changing her account passwords and making calls to get the device locked. A massive shame, but we had to carry on, finish the video. We had a rooftop to get to. And finding one wasn't as easy as I'd expected. The initial plan was to go to a hotel, take a lift to the top floor, and then find a nice window to look out of. But what I ended up using was a helter-skelter, or for those of you who don't know, a theme park ride. I got permission to walk to the top, and it would be very tough to complain about the view from there. In both video and the subsequent photos I took afterwards, the Mate 30 RS smashed it, and I also tried 3x zoom and 5x zoom whilst using night mode. Just before I headed back home to do some gaming, I tried two things. A side-by-side video comparison with the Samsung Galaxy Fold, as you can see here, and I found a spot to give traffic trails mode a go. If you have a tripod, you can stick the phone on it and make it only pick up the lights of passing cars. Anyways, on the way back, we're at 39% battery after about 5.5 hours of heavy screen-on usage so far. Also worth noting is that I've had the phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot for an hour and a half of this time. So, I got home, I hit download on a few games that I wanted to try, and whilst I was doing this, I had a thought. In 2018, with Huawei's limited edition Porsche design Mate RS, Porsche refused to add a notch onto their phone, even though it was based on the P20 Pro which had one. And now I thought about it, it seems like with the Mate 30 RS, Porsche has allowed the notch, but they've clearly designed wallpapers to try and mask it. Anyways, just before games, the other thing I was really curious about and decided to try was a benchmark. This special edition phone uses the Kirin 990 5G chip, which is actually built on a better manufacturing process than the standard 990, and so in theory it should be faster. In practice, it came out like 8,000 points higher, and that's factoring in the extra 4GB of RAM. I would say that difference would have been significant a few years ago, but nowadays, with the incredible numbers that modern flagships are achieving, it's negligible. So gaming was about what you'd expect. Reasonably smooth gameplay on basically any title you try. I spent about an hour on Call of Duty Mobile, and then the rest of the evening just using the phone passively, on social media, checking the photos I'd taken that day, and watching a few videos. I mentioned earlier that the phone has no volume slider, and Huawei has a very interesting answer to that. You double tap on the curved edges and then slide to change volume. I'd say I prefer the feel of having a physical button, but this does have the perk of working on both left and right-hand sides. Anyways, the day came to an end at around 11:30 PM, having had around 7.5 hours of screen on time and having used 86% battery. So to sum up, the Huawei Mate 30 RS has been fun to use. I'd say it's different enough physically to have been a refreshing unboxing and first impressions experience, but at its core, software-wise, it's pretty alike what you'd get from the much more affordable Huawei Mate 30 Pro. It's not a value handset, none of these car-branded limited edition phones are, but I can say it delivers on what it promised. Thanks a lot for watching, my name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.